Foam rolling, the foam roller. Why? Foam rolling is something that I've not always agreed with, because I was stuck in a period of my life where I would foam roll, got a lot of like movement out of my spine, and then I'd have to do it again. I do it in between patients, and then it was back. So it's telling me that I wasn't really fixing the problem, getting mobilization out of the spine. But that's not what everyone uses it for. That's what a lot of chiropractic patients will use their foam roller for. And other patients, like go to the gym, what do you see people use it for? They're rolling their legs. Sorry, my wife came out, just making sure my mic was working, because I was going to do it downstairs, and it was like a dungeon, really dark. But that room is also purple, just like this foam roller. So wondering why I have a purple foam roller? I like purple. Inside my ring is purple. You can see that. Yeah, there we go. So I got problems, purple problems. So that's one caveat to the foam rolling, is you still need to do spinal stability. So when is the question? When should you do foam rolling? So I'm going to run over a few things. I say warm up before you foam roll, because you don't want to really stretch or roll cold muscles. You want to warm them up first. So I'm going to do 10 simple founders, Dr. Goodman's founders. So, and I'm also going to feel for certain things, because with mindless foam rolling is another thing that I don't like. Mindless foam rolling is I'm just going to roll the same muscles every time. I'm going to roll muscles that hurt, and the muscles that hurt aren't always the ones that are tight. Okay, and we'll go over that in more detail. But I'm going to back up, do some founders. So, not giving it 100%, which is odd for foundation training, because it's kind of about giving 100%. So automatically I feel a little more tightness anterior front of my hip socket. So the question is that a tight muscle, or is that a taut muscle? Well, where do you feel that tension? Well, it's more by up here, so it's more at the end of a muscle, so it'd be probably a tendon. And usually if you're feeling it in the tendon, it's more likely that that muscle is weaker. It's in an overstretched state, and it's likely to be sprained. So a lot of people sprain something without really doing anything crazy. Like a lot of times it's the neck, and they're always stretching one side because it hurts. Well, take a second and just feel the muscles. Just feel. Like, okay, my left is a little more, I feel some knots, it's bumpy. My right one might feel hard, but are there lumps? Is the mass bigger? And that'll let you know if it's a tight muscle or a taut muscle. And you don't necessarily want to stretch muscles that are taut. You might get some relief from doing that. A lot of people who stretch their hip flexors because they always feel they're tight get some relief. And I'll tell you in a second that usually the hip flexors are always weak and inactive and in an overstretched position. So stretching them makes you feel better, but in the long run they're still tight, right? And, so it's definition of insanity, doing something without getting a result. So I'm going to do some more founders here. Not too bad on that hip. And think about what you're feeling in your back too. I feel a little more restriction on my left shoulder, which makes sense because I really did feel more bulk here. So that upper trap is kind of controlling that motion. It's harder for me to pull it into the socket. Just little things I'm noticing. The more you do this, you get better at noticing maybe what you should roll, and that's why the warm-up is kind of important. Get a little deeper. You'll feel more things the deeper you get and the better you get at doing something like the founder. And I just feel erector spinae on the left a little tighter, which makes sense. It's probably more of a left-sided problem. I've got hip issue here, upper trap feels a little tighter, and here. And these feel like minor things. I notice them because I have problems. So we'll just stop right there. Let's just say that's a warm-up. I know I only did like half of one. So foam rolling, what would I want to focus on? Well, I'm going to roll muscles, and I'm also going to get some movement in the spine. So I'm going to do both. So erector spine, I feel tight on my left, and usually that's kind of the thoracolumbar junction. That's a little bit more here, usually, where that's going to cause the problem, because it tends to pull us into this position. So I'm going to try to roll that out. I'm going to break one of the cardinal rules. Everyone says don't roll your lumbars. It's okay to roll your lumbars, folks. You just don't want to be on the spine. And you don't want to extend over it, right? Because extension's already the problem. You want to loosen up the erector spinae, so we're going to be in more of a curl, more of a crunch position when we're on the foam roller. And I'll angle that camera down in a second. And I might just run through some of the other rolling positions that not a lot of people talk about, because I also don't believe that your calves are tight as you think they are. I think they're, again, a very taut muscle that's very underused. And it just feels angry and tight, and people roll the heck out of them and they don't get much result. So rolling the shins is something that I'm going to show you. Rolling extensor digitorum, maybe the peroneus longus and brevis. Those muscles that tend to be overused, because think about how most people stand with this locked leg position. That's not calf that's working there. That's those shin muscles here. And just rolling on the front of the shin is not going to get you anywhere. You want to roll more in between the fibula and the tibia, right in the meat there. We're not, the only time we're rolling on, we don't really want to be rolling on bone ever. And that's another problem that I don't like about people rolling on the spines, is just rolling the whole spine, rolling the whole spine. You're looking for a very knotted area to focus on, or a very restricted joint area to focus on. Rolling the whole spine means you're rolling areas that are actually weak or sprained and injured, and possibly making them worse and more weak. So we want to focus on the tight areas, and that's why doing a little warm-up might let you know. Pay attention. Again, rule number 1, don't roll mindlessly. So let's run through those. Let me just angle this down here. It's really bright, I can't even see. A little rain here earlier, that felt good actually. Okay. So hopefully I don't knock my mic off here. So, and this is it's a bumpy foam roller, which is good for more muscles. Can be a little painful on your spine. Let's move that right there. So this is tough for a lot of people because you're getting in a plank. And right on the meat of that shin. Again, I'll kind of run through the muscle, so I'm kind of feeling maybe where a knot is. When I have one, right there's a little one, I'll just kind of work it out like it's a uncooperative piece of dough. You're trying to make a pizza, making the pizza. And I'll even run down right into the ankle, kind of running along that peroneus pattern. It kind of wraps around the foot. This one people sprain a lot. And yeah, this is a little tight right there. And you're spending about 60 seconds or less on a muscle. If I find a spot, sometimes I'll just do little rocks. If I find like a really tight spot. And then I'll compare. Let me show you from a different angle. I don't know what you can see here. Again, I'm not on the bone, on the muscle. And I'm just showing you this one because it's not one a lot of people do. And think about your spine too while you're here. Get a little extension going on. Good for those weak hip flexors I'm talking about. This looks almost like a jackknife you would do on a stability ball. Right, well, 2 in 1, right? Why not strengthen while you're loosening up? Right there. Ooh. So a little more peroneus on this side, a little more extensor digitorum on the other side. And I'm just going to skip the calf muscles because I know for myself they're just weaker. And you're talking to a guy who works on a lot of spines, touch a lot of legs. I know it's generally tighter and generally weaker on most people. So don't listen to the pain, because that's rule number 2. Don't follow the pain. When you're rolling, maybe. Well, not even when you're rolling, because if you're rolling and it hurts when you're doing it, you're like, oh, that's good. And you continue to roll and the pain doesn't go away, it should loosen up. You might be just rolling a sprained, irritated top muscle. So don't follow the pain. Rule number 2. All right, normally you roll the hamstrings. Most people know how to do that. Roll the quads. The only thing, most people know this, don't roll your IT band. Why? Because it's a ligamentous tissue. If you're gonna roll the IT band, you wanna roll tensor fascia lata. Kind of wraps up here. I don't really want to do that one. I'll kind of do that one. I'll do it on my right side because I don't want to mess with my mic. But also I'm going to show another one that's always tight, along with tensor fascia lata, is piriformis tends to be very tight. And that runs from outside of your hip down in here into your sacrum, your tailbone. So that tends to turn people out. Hips turn out, so they're not in the socket fully. And the pelvis shifts forward and the spine does a lot of work then when you're walking. Even when you're walking, it causes degeneration to happen over time because the hips aren't in the socket as they should be. And they're not creating a good foundation for which just to lift off. So this ties back to what I felt in my hip. Just a little irritated when I was doing it. Not bad. It was just like, that doesn't feel quite right. Probably it's actually because my left hip piriformis is tighter, or it could be, you know, that TFL. And you could roll alongside either side of the IT band, that's okay. If you're trying to get more, okay, I'm gonna get more vastus lateralis in the quad, or you're trying to get bicep femoris, hamstring, that's fine. It's just when people are rolling directly here, almost like you're rolling directly on the bone. So either or there. Let me show that. I'll show that on the right. So here I'm kind of on vastus lateralis and the muscle. We're not just like rolling. We're trying to look for any knots. And if you don't find anything, move along, people. Maybe there's a little bit. It's not too bad. And it's even smart to maybe compare to the other side. Do a little switch. Be like, not just feeling for pain, but you're feeling for bulk. So I actually feel like my left is less painful, but more bulky. More knots, I feel, especially right here. Trying to get those knots going. Work those out. So I'm not on the IT band, I'm more on the quad. It's the outside of the quad. It's called the quad because it got 4 quad muscles. You actually got 4 hamstrings. Most people say 3. There's a little tiny one nobody talks about, which has a lot to do with a lot of knee problems and fibular problems. So here's a little hamstring. Again, same thing. Not too bad. You can put your weight on your leg like that. And good to get a little warm up, and then it's good. Check the inside, because you actually got 2 hamstring muscles on the inside. And that's another way to think about it. If I know that my inner thigh on my left might be weaker, might be more sprained, or about to be, the other side is probably the opposite. And it's okay to think that way. It's okay to make guesses. At least gives you some direction where to start with. Yeah, I don't feel nearly as much inner thigh on the left. So when I'm doing piriformis, sit your butt right there. You don't want to be on the tailbone. You want to be, cross that over, figure 4. And you're in the meat again. Always in the muscle, not so much on the joint. And I know it's going to look like I'm going to contradict that when I do the spine, but it's, you know, I'm walking contradiction. So yeah, there's actually hitting a lot here. It's not just piriformis, a lot of glute muscles here, a lot of external rotators of the hip. So again, this is painful, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's tighter. So I do want to compare. Think more in bulk. So definitely not as bad over here. And we want to make it feel like we're doing a difference when we stand up and do the founder again. We want to see, hey, is this easier to do? Do I still have that catching pain? That is the goal. And again, you're not spending too much time here. Let's move on to the spine. So I said erector spine, I felt tight on the left. So I'm going to go ahead and start right about where it should be. Again, I'm not extending over that. That's how you hurt yourself. And I'm not even on the spine. I'm kind of going to the right, going to the left. Left felt tighter. That doesn't mean it's necessarily tighter, remember. Just rolling erector spine. And you can go all the way up if you want, all the way down. As long as you stay in this crunch position, you'll be fine. If you know your spine is really twisted, probably want to see a chiropractor first. Especially in the founder, because the founder works against the erector spine if they're over dominant. So if you do feel it's tighter on one side, it's probably not that it's taut. it would feel less on the side that's taut. I mean, you would feel it more on the side that is tight, short, hypertonic, all the AKs for each other. It's hard to get this area to move. You can do a little flexion here. Sometimes you'll get it, but definitely don't extend over it. It's not about getting a big pop there. So then I will roll along the back, but I said don't roll like crazy. You're not like doing this kind of thing. It's not violent. It's really slow. Sometimes even just resting here, just holding this position is good. Because then you have something digging into those muscles. And you're also activating your posterior chain muscles, your spinal muscles. All right. I'm getting a nice little cramp in my foot. You get a cramp? Hang on to that thing. You don't want to shake out of the cramp. Let it go. Something's changing. Something's good. All right. And now, since I felt left upper trap was tighter, it might even be left like levator scap too. It's hard to tell because they just overlay each other. Right there. That's an area I feel a lot of people miss. Kind of like lower part of the cervical spine transitions into thoracic spine. Hear that one? I want to get a pop for you. So those are those muscles that pull on the back of our skull. And again, after you get a nice pop, do a little decompression. Activate your neck. Activate your scalenes. I'm closing my eyes because the sun is right in them. Pulling the shoulders down, driving the head up. And I feel that on my left. I actually don't feel it where I was touching before. I feel it where it attaches on my occiput. That feels good. So you can focus more on one side over the other. Just put your weight there to shift a little bit. So just noticing everything on my left. And that might even be chicken or egg. It could be related to the hip not doing its job, so that side of the spine gets tighter. Or this side of the spine is tighter and that causes the hip. We're just going to address all three. If you're still feeling that something's stuck, it looks like a unicorn in the sky. That's when you want to go to the chiropractor too. Again, if you got something that's counter-rotated and you're rolling on it, you do have the tendency to sprain that or irritate that. So if you're seeing chiropractors regularly, that's okay to roll the spine. If you haven't in a while, I might avoid it because then you don't want to damage anything. But follow those rules about protecting your low back when you're doing here. And the mid-back, you notice most people spend all their time here in the mid-thoracic area, and that's what's going to hurt you in the long run because you're rolling areas that are irritated. It feels tight there because usually there's spasms in the rhomboids because we're doing a lot of this. All right, that plays with the rector spinae, pulling us back, and we squeeze the rhomboids, and we think this is good posture, but we're completely disengaged in the hip flexors. So you have these spasms in those muscles, but then you're rolling irritated joints in the thoracic spine. So don't roll where you're rounded. That's where you need to strengthen. Use the posterior chain to drive up. So I'm going to go over everything, but I'm going to do a couple founders, see if that made any difference or see if I'm actually just crazy. So this is what I did at the beginning. And now is when you go into your exercise portions is what I would say. You want to roll, warm up, don't roll cold muscles, roll, and then you want to go into your exercise because you're trying to take those tight muscles that are controlling, creating bad posture, and eliminate them so you can focus on strengthening the weaker muscles. All right, here we go. Let's see if it made any difference. Much better. I don't feel that left hip at all. That's amazing. Good. A little bit at the end there when I really press hard, but definitely a big difference. Now I'm feeling for the erectors. I still feel some restriction in that left shoulder. There's a lot more you could roll. Maybe it's lat that's tighter that I need to focus on. Maybe that's what's causing that, but overall I don't feel this as much. So you can really help your body move more symmetrically. I do still feel a little bit in the right hip, and I didn't spend as much time on there. So they're probably both a little tight. And yeah, definitely a little bit more here. So I focused pretty much all on the left. And I don't even notice that when I adjust people, I'm always working on the tight side. And then the other side will show up a little tighter. So you can even go back, roll just a little bit more, or that's probably just good enough there. So I was just trying to finish up my final thoughts on foam rolling. I don't know if you heard that I felt much better doing the founder after the warm-up. So it was a big change there. Here in my dark dungeon now, my purple room. So yeah, so warming up lets you know, hey, where to roll. And don't listen to the pain is rule number 2. So don't roll mindlessly. Warm up, don't roll cold muscles. And then you want to roll before you work out. And that'll just help things move better because you're trying to fight against those tight muscles because your body's always going to use the dominant muscles. So you want to eliminate those, work on those so you can focus on using the weaker muscles. And I talked about in the last video the 2 strengths of the spine. You have the ability to lift more weight. That's okay as long in the gym, but as far as foundation training, none of that's happening because it's trying to teach you more for normal life. Like if I'm just putting up a cup on top of a shelf, I shouldn't have subtle distortions in my spine. It's my shoulder should be able to handle isolated shoulder motion to lift a couple of ounces to put them up on a shelf. It's just we always rob motion from the spine, and that's when the weakness happens. The ability for the spine to act as a strong stabilizing structure for isolated hip and shoulder motion is lost. So it's not just bending in motion, thinking too much yoga. Really, it's all warping and bending of the spine, not actually strengthening it. And we're needing less and less of that in our culture, but people keep going and playing the yoga card and not getting better, and they're laying on the table and understanding, I don't understand why everything's terrible. And they just keep doing more and more yoga and trying to get deeper and deeper into their stretches, robbing motion from the spine the whole time. So severely restricted hips on a lot of these yoga people, even though they're doing hip stretches all the time. That's the irony there. So foundation training teaches you true hip motion, and that'll help you out in the long run. Because if you're always robbing motion from your SI joints or your lower lumbar spine, that's when the hip's going to become restricted because all day long it's not able to do its job. And when the hip has failed, that's when the spine falls into compression. You're not able to anchor and lift with the spine, and that leads to all those problems. So hopefully that answers the questions there, tied to the last video that because of the sun killing my phone. And if I think of anything else, or if you have any questions, let me know, and I'll get to it.